Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Girl Be Free podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan, where I'm going to inspire and motivate you to show up for yourself. This week, I am loving the members of the Be Free Inner Circle. No, seriously, I am just so in awe of the women who have chosen to show up for themselves in such a big way. I have two separate groups of women who recently met in real life, which just makes me oh so happy because my whole focus, my mission is all about community connection and making an impact. And I yearn or desire to bring women together that can begin to cultivate beautiful relationships with like minded women. And so, knowing that they are hooking up in real life and building new friendships just makes me oh so happy. So I believe it was about a month or so ago. Keisha and Deidre, they met up in real life, and I believe Deidre lives in Philly and Keisha lives in Jersey, and they met halfway for coffee or lunch or something like that, and then said they had such a great time that they were going to make sure that they did it more frequently, and which was so beautiful because I'm like, yes, y'all, yes. And then I believe last weekend, Dana and Linda met up in real life, and they both live in Maryland, and they went to Starbucks for coffee. They posted a picture in the group, which made me oh so happy. But I was like, yes, this is what I yearn for because I am here to cultivate this community of sisterhood, and I want you ladies to be able to connect and bond in real life. And so to see that they two different groups of women took initiative and said, yes, I want to hook up and connect and have conversation and meet you in real life. Like that is just so amazing. And I'm encouraging that more and more, especially as the community grows and we get more people from all over the world, like in the community, where these small little meetups of BFFs, which is what I call my Be Free family, can connect and begin to cultivate relationships. So that is what I'm loving this week. If you want to know more about the Be Free Inner Circle, you can go to BeFreeInnerCircle.com. The link will always be in the show notes for you. All right, next up, I want to share with you the listener review for the week. And again, this is coming from a member of the Be Free Inner Circle, Valerie. And I believe this review came from last week's episode or maybe the episode before last. And she says, oh my God, I finally got a chance to listen. And Siobhan, ma'am, I felt that. I can't thank you enough for providing space for women to move past what's holding them back. And thank you for sharing a part of you that was so tender. Still, that's vulnerability, and it's not easy to put yourself out there like that. So, Valerie, thank you so much for sharing that. And she's right. Being vulnerable is not easy. I'm learning that. I've always known that, but I'm learning that more and more as I've been saying, pulling back the mask and showing women my true self, and not just women, like in general. And from the emails that I've been writing, the posts that I've been sharing on social, this has been my way of freeing myself. And because what will happen, and I'm going to be talking a lot more about shame, but when you have these insecurities or things that make you feel less than or not good enough, they will continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger in your mind. However, when you start to speak on those things out loud, now you're not giving that shame any value anymore or any weight or letting it show up in your life in a big way. And so the more that I've been releasing myself of the things that I've been, let's just say, embarrassed about, the more free and lighter that I feel. And you ladies, which I'm so grateful for my community, have been responding and saying, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, from the social media comments and the emails that I'm getting or seeing people in person, like, oh my goodness, I read that, post about migraines, and I too suffer from migraines. And just reading your story has helped me look at things a little bit differently. Like, that is what showing up is all about. Like, showing your truth, owning your story, and not allowing whatever has happened to you keep you stuck and stagnant, but you grow from it. And I understand, and I say this all the time, that my story as I'm healing from it is no longer my own. it is my obligation, it is my responsibility to share it with other people so then they can heal on their journey. And I'm seeing that more and more because you ladies are sharing that with me. So I'm always going to encourage you to share, as if this podcast is helping you, if my newsletters are helping you, whatever, like let me know, because the only way that I know is if you share it. And I am on this mission to impact women worldwide to change their lives, to show up and be free. So you can share um, with me how I am impacting your life, whether you share it on Apple Podcasts and you leave a comment, which I love. If you share with me on social media, we have you can follow me at Girl Be Free Podcast or Be Free Project, either one. Or you can always send me an email, and that will always be listed in the show notes. And just let me know, that it helps me in so many ways. Like, okay, you're not crazy, you're not alone, and there are people that can relate and identify. So if that's you, definitely reach out to me. All right, today's topic is titled Forgive Yourself. And this topic was actually requested by a Girl Be Free listener. She sent me a message on Facebook asking me to talk about this because it was something that she was struggling with herself. And so I did an IG live last week on this topic, but I'm like, I need this to live on more than 24 hours. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a whole podcast episode on this to really give some insight on forgiving yourself. Because oftentimes, you'll hear people say, you got to forgive that person, who hurt you. But sometimes that person is yourself. Sometimes you're the one that you need to forgive. And you have been very hard on yourself for the choices and mistakes that you've made. And those mistakes are making you feel bad about yourself, making you feel like giving up, quitting, feeling lost, just really being very hard on yourself because of the choices that you made. And so I want to start this with the choices that you made at the time. You did the best that you knew how. Because if you were wiser, if you had more knowledge, life experience, whatever, you would have done things differently. So, number one, give yourself grace that you did the best that you could in that moment, and release the guilt and the shame that you're feeling around whatever choice that you made. And it literally can be anything. And you know how the saying goes, if you know better, you do better. And what I really appreciate about the Girl Be Free listener that reached out to me is that she's seeking better because she reached out to me and asked for me to record an episode on this. And so that shows me that she doesn't want to carry the guilt and the shame anymore. She just needs a perspective to help her do the inner work. And so I'm so glad that she reached out to me. So again, number one, you have to forgive yourself, right? Let go of the shame and guilt that you've been carrying. Mistakes happen, we all make them. Failures happen. But what I want you to focus on is not the mistakes and the failure, but what lesson did you learn from that experience? So that's going to take some time to really pause and be still and really think, okay, this was a choice that I made, and these are the consequences from that choice. What did I learn from it? How can I grow? How can I be better? And if you switch and think of everything as what lesson can I learn, that will prevent you, or you won't carry, I guess, the guilt and shame and feeling like, beating up on yourself, right? So this episode is all about forgiving yourself. And I know sometimes we as women, we can be so hard on ourselves, but we really got to acknowledge what we are doing. Like whether you are a mother, a wife, a partner, a daughter, a sister, a friend, like you're doing a lot. And the world is going to be very hard on you, right? So the least you can do is to be gentle and kind with yourself and not put too much pressure on yourself for the choices that you made because you didn't know as much as you know now. So I'll say for me, I had to forgive myself for being too hard on myself. And that's in my personal life and in my business. In my personal life, I would say I was really hard, and this is something that I got to continue to work on with, am I a good mother? And I know that I'm an amazing mother, but based on how I grew up, there's always this competition or this with like, I'm not good enough or I'm not doing enough. And so I overcompensate sometimes to try to be this perfect mom, which doesn't exist, right? And so I had to realize and learn like you are an amazing mother. Like the way that you show up for your children, the way that you love on them, you are amazing. And I have to keep telling myself that, right? And not comparing or competing with the idea of what I think a mother should be or how I was raised, but how am I showing up in my children's life? And again, I had to forgive myself for being too hard on myself. Another area of my life in my business, one of the things that I'm very guilty of saying all the time is, what am I doing wrong or what am I missing? And I would say that so much. And my best friends would be like, you're not doing anything. You're doing all the things right. Like I see it. And I'm like, I know, but something is missing. And so I was always on this quest of looking for what I was missing, not knowing that I already had everything together and that this is a journey. Like building a business from nothing is a lot of work. And it was brought to my awareness when I was speaking with my coach a few weeks ago. She was like, why do you always feel like you're missing something? She was like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so I said, from now on, I will not say, what am I missing or what am I not doing right? Because what was happening is I was attracting more of that energy in my life. So everything that I did in my business felt like it wasn't good enough. And it was hard to celebrate my wins because I felt like, yeah, this is good, but you're still missing something. And it took her saying that to me where I was like, oh, okay, I do say that all the time. And then I told my best friend, I said, hey, listen, if you ever hear me saying these two phrases, stop me in that moment. Do not allow me to say that anymore because I do not want to continue to project that energy out into the world because I am doing everything right and I'm learning and growing as I go. And what's so funny, this as soon as I put that out and told, my best friend, I was telling my kids the same thing. I said, if y'all, well, no, first, this is a situation that happened. So my husband had made my son a breakfast sandwich with sausage and egg and a bagel. Now, I typically make this sandwich for my son every day. It's like his staple. So the following day, I made the exact same sandwich for my son the day after my husband did. And I'm like, why is my sandwich like more puffier? Like it was like the sausage was like, I don't know, puffier. I don't know how to explain that. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I was like, oh, you did it again. And I was like, and I caught it in that very moment because I talked about self-awareness before. And I said right in front of my children, if y'all ever hear me say those two phrases, remind me of it. And I did that because I need accountability and I need people to see me and show me, if that makes sense, right? And so I didn't even realize how often I was saying it until it was brought to my attention. This is why it's so beautiful to work with the coach and have people hold you accountable and help you see yourself for who you really are. And so when I noticed that I was saying this statement like over and over again, I was like, this has to stop. And so I am working on it. But those are two areas of my life where I have to forgive myself for the things that I've said or the things I have thought so I can grow and become better. I am always doing my best based on where I'm at. One of the four agreements from the book, The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz, is to always do your best. And so that's always in my mindset, like showing up and doing my best. So if I'm doing my best, even with the mistakes and things that's going to happen along the way, that's okay and it's a part of life. And I am allowing that to come in because, again, I have to continue to learn and grow. And not just for myself, but in relationships that I'm in, for this community that I'm building. Like, I have to continue to show up and be my best and be okay with the things that are going to happen along the way that I can learn from. Just know, like, mistakes, failures, all that stuff is going to happen. You are not going to skate through life with everything being perfect. We are all experiencing something in our lives, and we are all in spaces where we need to grow, period. So no one's life is perfect at all. And if you're looking at your life and you're comparing it to someone else's and then feeling like you're less than or not good enough, that's something, again, that you're going to have to forgive yourself for. So I was online and I was looking up some information on, like, kind of talking about this topic. And I found an article on healthline.com, and it was all about, like, practical things to think about when we need to forgive ourselves. And so I'm going to share some of these tips with you. You may want to have a pen and notebook out so you can take notes or just go back and listen to this episode. But the first thing is that you want to focus on the emotions. So think about, what are you feeling that's causing you to be really hard on yourself? Or what are the emotions that you're experiencing as it relates to, like, unforgiveness? So think about what has happened or occurred in your life and what emotion is attached to that, right? So I'll give you an example. With me feeling like I wasn't a good mother, the emotion that was connected is I didn't feel good enough. And that emotion was, like, more so pain or hurt, um, because of how I was brought up. And so I had to acknowledge and identify that, like, that what I was carrying was from my past, and it had nothing to do with my present and who I was today. And so I had to acknowledge the emotions that was tied to me feeling like I wasn't a good mother, and then work on those emotions, right? So think about, what are you experiencing? What are you feeling internally that's making you feel like, or what's making you be too hard on yourself? Number two, acknowledge the mistake that you made out loud. So for me, saying, what am I doing wrong? Like, that wasn't just in my business, it was also in my family and all that jazz. Okay, saying, what I'm this is a mistake that I feel that is happening, that I am doing something wrong. And the more that I said it, I couldn't hear myself saying it because it had become so common. It was a part of my nature, right? But when I started saying it to other people, then they were able to say, well, wait a minute, you're doing everything right. Why do you think you're doing something wrong? So with me saying it out loud and me communicating it with someone else, brought it to my awareness. Now I can deal with why I feel the way that I feel. Number three is to reflect on the lessons learned. So think about, yes, you may have failed. Maybe you didn't finish school when you thought you should, or maybe you you recently got a divorce and you feel bad about that choice, even though you know it was the best decision for you at the time. Maybe you took a job that you're not comfortable with, but you're really unhappy, but it was the best choice that you knew to do at the time, right? So you just think about the things that have happened in your life. What lessons can you learn? So I'll give an example, and I don't know if I shared this in the podcast, but I know I shared in the email how, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, when I felt stuck in my life, when I lacked clarity, and I'm like, I do not know why I am here. I had a conversation with a friend, and she was like, you should go to school to get your master's in library science because you love to read. Now, listen, I never in my life said I wanted to be a librarian, but because I wasn't confident in my own self and I didn't know what I should be doing, I listened to someone else's idea of what they thought I should do. And I go to school because I'm like, oh, yeah, I do love to read books, so maybe I should be a librarian. I enrolled the first semester and withdrew in the first semester because that wasn't the right choice for me. And the lesson to be learned is that I have to listen to myself and what's going on internally and not let someone else decide what I should be doing. Now, granted, I gave them permission. I allowed it. They didn't do anything that, they were just giving me advice, but I allowed that advice. And because I allowed it and then acted on it, I have to own up to the choice that I made and learn in the future what can I do better versus letting someone else, or excuse me, allowing someone else to make decisions for me. And that was a very poor decision because I'm still paying back student loans for that decision I made years ago. So what I want you to reflect on is what lesson can you learn based on the choice that you made, and take ownership over that, right? You made the choice based on where you are. What can I learn from this choice? The next one is have a conversation with your inner critic. So we all know that inner voice that sometimes it can be so loud and make you feel like you're the worst person in the world. And so I talk about this often, like you have to shift the negative thinking. You have to release it so you can focus on the positive. And so you have to have a conversation with that inner voice. And when you notice that the, I guess, the negative energy or the negative thoughts are like so strong, okay, listen, this is not going to work for us. And I'm serious, like you have to speak to yourself, right? And do it in, do it in a quiet space so people don't think like whatever. But yeah, this is not okay. This is not, I don't like what we're thinking right now, and start shifting and focusing your thoughts on something positive. But you have to have a conversation with that inner critic and let that inner voice know that the negative thoughts that are floating through your mind, they're not okay. And you have to replace them with the thoughts that you want to have. And it is work. It is not like, oh, one day you can take out a negative thought and replace it with something positive. It is an ongoing battle. Negative thoughts seep in my mind all the time. And I have to constantly say, no, that's not okay. We're not going there today. And having a conversation with my mind like it's a child. The next one is to be mindful when you're being too critical or too hard on yourself. So I say this all the time. That inner voice or those thoughts that you have or that negative self-talk when no one else is around, you would be so embarrassed if people knew how you talk to yourself. Do not be overly critical. And I know it's easier said than done, but again, these are just practical things that you can start to apply to your life. Don't be too hard on yourself. Again, you're doing the best that you can with what you know. And as you grow and learn, you're going to evolve over time. But don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself grace. I mean, treat yourself the way you would treat other people. Show yourself love and compassion and kindness and be gentle with yourself. Don't be too hard because it's not okay. And that's what's going to, when you're too hard on yourself, then what's going to happen is that it's going to be hard for you to forgive yourself because you're going to always be beating yourself up about what you didn't do and what you didn't say. And that's just way too much energy that you're putting out into the world. The next one is to take your own advice. So, sometimes how we can give everybody the advice, but we don't take it ourselves. And I'm guilty of that as well. So if you're encouraging other people and you're inspiring them and you're motivating them, do the same thing for yourself. Take your own advice. Women say this all the time, like, oh, I can encourage everybody else, but when it comes to me, I don't do it. Well, I want to challenge you to start encouraging yourself. Start speaking affirmations. Start speaking life over yourself. Don't be the person that can be there for everybody else, but you're not there for yourself. Let that go. The next one is to, and I just kind of touched on this, to be compassionate, give yourself love, show yourself kindness, be gentle with yourself. Show yourself love day in and day out. Self-care equals self-love. So think about how can you love on yourself a little bit more? What are some forgiveness practices that you can put in place? There's actually a book by Iyanla Vanzant called Forgiveness. And this book was recommended to me by the editor. Well, she was the editor of Essence Magazine, Susan Taylor. And I have the book. I never finished it, but I do have it. But I don't, and I can't remember why she recommended it to me, but she did. And so I'm recommending it to you if you're someone who needs to work on forgiveness. She must have saw something in me. Um, but check out that book, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And then the last step here is to get help, right? So if you're just overwhelmed with emotion and just it's just so much going on in your mind, and it's really hard for you to do the inner work on your own, find a therapist that you can work with that can kind of help you through the process. If you don't need therapy but you still need work, you still need help on doing the inner work, find a coach, find a book, find a course, find a class, find some type of resource that can help you start to change your life. Because again, I don't want you listening to this podcast week after week or follow me on social or reading my newsletter and your life is not changing in some kind of way. So I really want you to be intentional about doing the inner work. And that means that you're going to have to find resources and guides to help you on your journey. Your action step this week is actually a journal prompt from the Free Your Mind Journal, which is a journal that I created. And it is 162 pages with 40 journal prompts, coloring pages, affirmations, and additional writing exercises to help you shift your mindset, to empower you, to challenge you to take action, and to help you get clarity. So if you're not familiar with the Free Your Mind Journal, check it out at freeyourmindjournal.com. You'll find it on Amazon. You can read all the reviews and all that great stuff. But the journal prompt this week is coming from there. And the prompt is, who do you need to forgive and why? So spend time writing your response in your journal. Lastly, I want to highlight dope women doing dope things. And again, I am highlighting a woman from the BeFree Inner Circle, and her name is Samara. And she just recently launched her blog, which is called budgettobefree.com, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And so it's all about getting your finances together and budgeting, and being free to do that, right? And so I'm so super proud of her. She put in a lot of hard work to get her blog off the ground, and so I want us to all support her. So again, if you're someone who needs help with your budgeting and all that jazz, definitely check out her blog. Let her know I sent you. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of the BeFree family community that makes you my BFF. And until next time, girl, be free.